And joining me right now here on the Mark Moses Show to go over the latest on, I can't believe I'm going to say this, ACC football and Bill Belichick. It's my good friend Chris Graham with the Augusta Free Press, who's covered the ACC for decades. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me, man.
I saw a post last night by UCF football where you're going to love this. It said, "Come in this fall to the Bounce House. Tickets are available. Bill Belichick in North Carolina versus Scott Frost in UCF." What dimension am I in? What parallel universe is this, Chris? Let's start there.
It's like a Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know. I mean, I was trying to think of an analogy here for someone to come with Bill Belichick's resume at the pro level. Red Auerbach maybe coaching like Iowa or something. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. And he's 72 years old, so Carolina's getting a year younger with its head coach. Matt Brown was 73 when he was just fired. It's a splash hire. It wins the news cycle. And I know a lot of people are raising issue with this hire. A lot of people outside of the Carolina sphere anyway are raising issue with this hire for lots of reasons. And I'm trying to find the positive. And, I think that maybe, the idea that if he does bring along his son, Steven, who spent a year as a defensive coordinator at the University of Washington, to be his defensive coordinator and then his coach in waiting, as has been rumored, maybe there's the silver lining. But that could also go wrong if Carolina doesn't, show any improvement over the next few years. So there's a lot to this story, and I don't know that none of it makes a lot of sense right now to me.
Okay, if you're North Carolina football, is this a smart move for publicity? Just, hey, we've been irrelevant. Let's try it. What do we have to lose?
I don't even know that they've been irrelevant, though. That's the thing. I mean, I know Matt Brown didn't get Carolina football back to where he had it when he left there 25 years ago or more now, because he left in 97. He had been winning, 10, 11 games a year towards the end of his tenure before he left to go to Texas. But he won 8 games and went to an Orange Bowl one year. He had a couple of top quarterbacks in the NFL draft, most recently Drake May. But outside of that, they didn't win to the level of their recruiting. Matt Brown recruited great. He had 4 recruiting classes that were in the top 15 nationally. Just couldn't put they couldn't put the kids in the right places to win enough football games to justify, how great they recruited. But, this year they were 6-6. They gave up 70 points to JMU, Sun Belt Conference team. And that started a downward slide that led to Matt Brown being let go. He had 2 years left on his contract, so he was effectively fired. They win the news cycle, but the big issue for Bill Belichick is going to be he has no experience in college and thus no contacts in the college coaching ranks. He's not going to be able to hire a staff of NFL guys and be able to do this job. He's going to have guys who know college football, and your assistants don't just coach the defensive line and the safeties and the running backs. They also have to go out there and recruit. And you're going to need those recruiting contacts as much as you're going to need guys who know how to coach, positions and call plays and that kind of thing. That's going to be the big challenge for Bill Belichick is putting together a staff that can get the players in the door so they can flash those Super Bowl rings and get them to sign on the bottom line.
Okay, there's many points I want to bring up with you now, and I appreciate coming on with your Chris Graham, Augusta Free Press. People are kind of saying, oh, it's like a Deion effect. But my thought is, hey, Deion put in the work. He was a high school coach, then a college football coach at a lower ranking, then he went to Colorado. He has actual chops in college athletics. Like you said, Belichick has no experience, and I love what you said, no contacts. He's got to go from zero. That's what fascinates me with this thing. I'm with you. At least Deion is a college coach, and I'm with you. I think this is going to be a complete disaster. Is that how you feel?
That it'd be the same thing for Deion. There's rumors about his interest maybe in the NFL. That's another move that could be difficult, but it would be easier to go from college to NFL than it would be to go from the NFL to college for that reason you mentioned. I've covered I covered UVA football as my primary touch to college football, and I've covered as a result of that, several coaching changes over the last 30 years. And every time, you see a new coach hired, the most important hires after that coach being hired is who he brings with him on his staff. And a new head coach brings with him guys that maybe he coached with at a previous stop, guys he's worked with, somewhere else as a fellow assistant, maybe a grad assistant somewhere. I mean, you have all those contacts from your years leading up to the day you get hired at a certain job. You mentioned Dion. I mean, yeah, Dion had a few years at Jackson State. He had the years coaching prep football in Texas. And so going to Colorado, he already had contacts out there. He had and not only the guys that you coach with, but guys they coach with. And if, they'll recommend a guy for you and that kind of thing. Belichick doesn't have that. I mean, he can develop it, but he doesn't have that. His son, he's coming from the University of Washington, but he was just there for a year. So it's not like, there's a lot of contacts there either. Stephen Belichick coached for 12 years on his dad's staff at New England before he did the year in college. So, yeah, that's going to be the biggest challenge. And then outside of that, I mean, just looking ahead to next year's team, the mechanics of that, the transfer portal open on Monday. The prep recruiting class signed last Wednesday. He's going to have to work to keep guys in that are already there, prevent guys from going in the portal. And it's not a guarantee that, hey, I can't wait to play for Coach Belichick. He won 7 Super Bowls, because there are going to be people out there saying to themselves, and maybe parents are going to be saying, yeah, but that guy's kind of got a reputation of being a guy who's really hard to play for. How's that going to work? It didn't work very well towards the end in the NFL. How's it going to work with college guys?
It's great for content. That's what it is. For us, this is a home run. Dude, I'm driving home last night, and I'm listening to different radio stations. Everyone has an opinion on this. Everyone. I'm fascinated by the Northeastern pro football fan, where they're like, this is a brilliant hire. Belichick's the man. He's going to be great. But I love your perspective, because you cover college sports, and essentially you're in Virginia, so you're kind of in the South as well. And you've been around NIL and the transfer portal. You sound like the old man in a horror movie. Like, kids, don't go into the woods. This is a terrible idea. Is that you after a while, Chris, when you look at this?
I mean, I think so, and this era is so different. Even 10 years ago, maybe a guy like Belichick with his authoritarian stature could, whip a group of kids into playing good football. And I don't know now. And plus, 10 years ago, we didn't have immediate eligibility for transfers. It'll be curious to me to watch the next few days to see how many kids on that current Carolina roster say, I didn't sign up for getting yelled at all the time. If I'm 5 minutes late to a meeting, much less if I'm only 5 minutes early to a meeting. He had that reputation of actually, fining guys if they were only 5 minutes early to meetings. How many college kids in this day and age are, as soon as they're told they can't practice one day because they were only 5 minutes early to a meeting, are going to go that day to the compliance office and say, I'm in the transfer portal now. That's going to be something to watch. I mean, the next few weeks, just monitoring that, getting through spring practice. I'm looking forward to the ACC football kickoff.
I knew it.
Go ahead and reserve my hotel room now for that.
You better get it now, because those prices are going to be going up for that. It's going to happen. You better get on it.
And, of course, we're all signing up to be grumped at by a guy for 5 minutes before he stalks off the stage. But, I mean, it's Bill Belichick. He won 7 Super Bowls. And so, yeah, we're all going to be there for that. But, it's a splash hire, and I give Carolina credit for the splash hire. It's their money, reportedly 5 years, $10 million per year. Oh, man, for a guy who's not won at the college level, it's a lot of money. For a guy who has won at the college level, it's a lot of money for a guy who has no chops in college athletics.
Is this to get back at Tom Brady? To show him I could do this? Is this a soap opera? Like, what is this long term? What's the game plan?
I mean, long term, I wonder, too, because, I'd love to see the contract about, his ability to ask for permission to interview for other jobs. Is this not even as much about Tom Brady? Is this about getting back at the NFL? He's gone a couple of cycles now without getting any bites on all these open NFL jobs. There's always 8 or 10 jobs open every year. Obviously, there's a few already open for the coming year. and he must be reading the market and saying nobody's interested in me. I'll go back to college and show them I can do it. I don't think the NFL cares. I mean, he's a guy that wanted full control, to be either the GM or in effect the GM for a team and then be the head coach. And, that model hasn't worked at the NFL level. As many guys have tried it to try to make it work. So he's going to get that in college. College coaches are CEOs. College football coaches, you're the coach, general manager, or everything else. So he'll get that control that he craves, but at a price of, the fickleness of 17-year-old kids. That's going to be the drawback.
Look, I'm on record as saying this, and I'm going to say it to you now. We're here with Chris Graham, Augusta Free Press. My Bears are so dysfunctional right now. If Belichick would have called up the Bears and been like, all right, I want to be coach and GM, I'd be like, fine, let's go. You're the greatest NFL coach of all time, and especially in the modern era. You're the man. No problem. Keys to the castle. My stipulation, I know HR would get angry at me. I'd be like, you have to get rid of the 24-year-old girlfriend. All right, enough of that. We're here to win. Let's get this going. I did not see on the bingo card, oh, I'm sorry, he can't coach your Bears, Mark. He has to coach North Carolina Tar Heels football. What else is going to happen? I'm seeing rumors of Rich Rodriguez. Is he the coach at West Virginia? Scott Frost back at UCF? Is anything possible, buddy? That's my question for you for 2025.
Rich Rod going back to Morgantown is as surprising to me, and in some ways more surprising than Belichick to Carolina for this reason, that his departure, Rodriguez's departure from West Virginia back in 2007, was about as acrimonious as you can get. You might remember he had that team like a score away. They lost 14-9 to Pitt in the backyard brawl in the regular season finale that year. They were 11-0 going into that game. They win that game. They're in the national championship game. Back then, we didn't have a playoff. You play 1 versus 2, and that was it. He loses that game, takes a job at Michigan. They sue each other over the buyout. I mean, it was ugly. I mean, these two people, they were in court for years after that. And, he doesn't do well at Michigan, goes to Arizona, doesn't do well there. He's had a couple of good teams at Jacksonville State. And now, he's 61 years old. For a guy with that history, he's still relatively young guy compared to Bill Belichick. He's a baby. But yeah, the Rodriguez going back there, Scott Frost after leaving UCF and then bombing at Nebraska, coming back to UCF, maybe he can recapture the magic there. Gus Malzahn leaving UCF to be a coordinator and saying he's doing it because he wants to be a football coach and not have to deal with NIL and transfers. Yeah, man, the world was turned upside down in a lot of ways.
Shouldn't he have called Gus Malzahn and get his thoughts? Because, look, Gus Malzahn coached in the national title game. He constantly beat a Nick Saban, right? He won a lot of football games in his career. Shouldn't you take his advice? Like, hey, or even better, shouldn't Belichick called up his buddy Nick Saban and asked him, hey, what's going on in college football? Wouldn't that have been this? Or maybe he did. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I cover University of Virginia sports, and my basketball coach, Tony Bennett, quit at the age of 55, citing the same issues that Nick Saban at 72 cited for why he left Alabama. It's hard to coach in this environment with the. It's not even as much the NIL. NIL is a part of it, but I think that's secondary to immediate transfer portal. You're eligible to go. You can declare yourself for it any time, and guys are doing this every year, and you can't build a roster. You can't build continuity. Coaches, and as much as that, coaches are coaching, 365 days a year now. I mean, coaching or working their job. They don't get days off. As soon as the season ends, like for a college football coach, your regular season ends on November 30th this year. It ended on Saturday night, November 30th. And then you've got a couple of days to get ready for signing day. You've been recruiting a signing class all year for a couple of years, whatever the case. You got to make sure none of those guys defect. And then as soon as signing day is over, you got the transfer portal opening up in 4 days. And for 80 coaches out there or whatever it is, you got a bowl game to prepare for. You got guys who were on your team all season long leaving to go somewhere else before your bowl game. You got to keep those kids in. You got to get them through admissions. You got to get ready for spring practice. I mean, there's not a day off. They used to have a few weeks here and there to kind of regenerate. after a season where you're working 7 days a week. I don't know how they do it. I know they're getting paid a lot of money at the high levels anyway. They're getting paid a lot of money. I wouldn't do the job for any amount of money.
I woke up at 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom because I'm an old man in Florida now. That's the world I look at. So I look at my phone, and it says Boston College quarterback, what is it, Tommy Castellano? He's transferring to Florida State. He's going to be the starter there. You can't make this up. Mike Norvell, can he just, and I like Coach Norvell, can he just recruit and develop a young quarterback? Can they just do that at Florida State after what happened last year? Or are they not going to learn from last year? That's my question.
But the thing is, though, I mean, recruiting and developing, so I cover UVA football. UVA football has become a developmental program. Really, it's almost like, some of those MLB teams that, Tampa Bay Rays, for example, that, can't keep guys after their contracts come up at the end of 6 years and they have to trade them off because they can't afford to keep them. At a place like UVA, they're a Power 4 school, but you develop a guy for a couple of years. We're losing our quarterback, Anthony Calandria, from down your way in Florida. Started 17 games as a freshman and sophomore. Decides that the grass is greener, and he's put his name in the portal. And so we're developing guys so that other people can get them as juniors and seniors. Duke, for the second straight year, lost its starting quarterback. Malik Murphy is going to Auburn, but then Duke signs a guy the next day. The kid from Tulane. Then they sign him the next day. It doesn't really pay to recruit and develop a quarterback, because a lot of cases you develop the guy so that someone else can benefit from their good years. So, as far as Castellanos going to Florida State, I think that's great for Florida State. This Castellanos kid, the 2 games I saw BC play Virginia, a good quarterback, a mobile quarterback, got a good arm. That's a good move, a veteran quarterback. He'll be a plug-and-play kind of guy. And that's unfortunately the way it works now. You let somebody else develop the kid, and then you take him away.
You know what's funny about that story is he played at UCF with Gus Malzahn. Then he left for Boston College. Now he's back with Gus Malzahn. Look, I can't keep up with all this. I can't. Hey, didn't Virginia, I swear, I think I texted you this a couple weeks ago. So O'Galley High School, I think, played against the big recruit from Florida that's going to go to Virginia. Is this correct? When I'm talking about quarterback.
Yeah, this is correct. The kid's name is not on the forefront of my mind right now, but you're right. It's a 6'3" kid from down your way. I fear that we'll spend 2 years developing him so he can go somewhere else.
Oh, man.
That's just the fear that you've got in this day and age. And I had this experience. I did broadcasting work at at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, which plays in the Southern Conference. So, not even Group of Five, certainly at football, they're FCS. But I did basketball and football there for years. And even before the transfer portal, when guys had to sit out for a year, VMI would have this issue where they'd find the diamonds in the rough, and schools like that. Other Southern Conference schools, other small conference schools, they'd find these diamonds in the rough, and then if they got too good, they'd go somewhere else. I mean, they had one year, one of the basketball players led the nation in scoring. He ends up transferring to Missouri. Another year, they had this point guard who averaged 20-something a game, ends up transferring to Georgia Tech. Football's always had that issue there. So now it's not just those schools, though. It is the bigger schools like a Virginia that, you're developing guys so other guys get the fruits of your labor.
The story that got lost in the shuffle yesterday, Chris Graham, because of Belichick taking over everything. How about the NCAA is thinking about making March Madness 72 or 76 teams? Why not just go to 100? Why stop there? What's your thoughts as a guy that covers college basketball?
I mean, here's what I could go with. No more NIT, no more CBI, whatever those other tournaments are. The same thing in football. Get rid of the bowls. Play for a championship or don't play anymore. And so if the NIT is whatever it is now, 32 or 40 or whatever it is, roll some number from there back into the NCAA tournament and figure out a way to do it. I mean, meaningful games are all I care about. The NIT games, I've covered some because, I've had the teams I cover playing. Virginia was in the NIT in 2022, just a couple years ago. You cover them because you got to. Some fans still come because it's the team playing and they support the team, but Those games don't mean anything.
No.
Bowl games outside of the playoff mean nothing. It's just, especially to the kids, because they're either opting out or transferring or whatever else. So let's play for a championship or don't play for anything. That's the way I take it.
Hey, I grew up in my home state rooting for Northwestern and Illinois. Those bowl games matter, buddy. I don't care what you say. Okay? So my aunt and uncle, they live here in Florida. They're big alumni from the University of Illinois. They're playing in Orlando on New Year's Eve against South Carolina. Those jabronis think they should have been in the playoff. Oh, we're going. This is big time. 9-3 with Brett Bielema. I can't wait. Should you join us, Chris? Come on, let's go.
Well, so you have warm weather bowls. I've been to cold weather bowls. I don't know why there are. I mean, okay, one, I'm not a fan of the bowl system in general, but if I have to go to a bowl, I went to the Orange Bowl in 2019 when Virginia was in that game against Florida.
I remember this.
It was 8 o'clock at night, 80 degrees on the field. This in December when you're in Virginia and you get on a plane and when you get off the plane it's 80 degrees. That's great. But I was also at the Military Bowl in 2017, and that's just in Annapolis. That's not even above the Mason-Dixon line. That's still technically south. And it was 2 degrees that day with a wind chill of minus 15, and they're playing football. There's no need for that.
No. Like how they have the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium for some reason in December.
There's a Fenway Bowl in Boston, even further north. Oh, my God. Why? Why are we doing this to people?
You know what? When you look at the college football playoff, I think they gave Boise State the 3 seed in the bye, so no one had to play at Boise State for a playoff game in December with what you're just saying. That's what it is.
If Virginia had won, the Virginia this year, the Virginia team that I covered was 5-7, but if they'd won their last game, which they never do, they played Virginia Tech in the last game. They lost 23 of the last 25 in that series. But if Virginia had won that game, they'd be in the Fenway Bowl. I went to Fenway. The Virginia baseball team played Boston College in Fenway back in late April, and it was still 45 degrees with a wind chill in late April. I was going to, of course, if Virginia's in Fenway, football is in Fenway, I'm going to be there. The press box can't be warm enough to justify having to walk there. But I'd be there. So, yeah, why do we do that? Well, why?
Because we can. That's why. Because we're America, the greatest country in the world. That's why. You know what? When they say they're going to 72 teams, it reminds me when I was at Walmart the other day, and they were selling a 98-inch high-definition TV. 98 inches. And I'm like, just go to 100. Keep going. Let's go. My question is, all right, if you're a number 1 seed and they go to 76 teams, do you get like a 2-game bye? Kind of like the ACC tournament where you get the double bye? Is that what you would do?
I'd have to start doing the math. I didn't pay it. I mean, I saw the headline too. I didn't read like how the bracket would work, but I mean, yeah, I guess. And so then the issue is, all right, we've done this in baseball, for example, right? We've got the wild card in baseball, and the wild card in baseball ends up messing with the teams who get the byes because the teams who have to play in the wild card rounds play either 2 or 3 games. The teams who get the byes take like a week off. And they lose their edge, and it's almost like it's an advantage to be the wild card. We've seen that in the last few years. The wild card teams, with baseball, for 6 months you play every day, and then you take a week off, and you're supposed to keep your competitive juices flowing. I wonder about the same with basketball. If you're giving teams a 2-day bye, you're giving them a weekend off.
Yes.
So yeah, that could be a disadvantage there. You might not want the top seed in that situation.
No. All right. Okay. Here's what I think we should do. I'm going to do a best of wrestling show the day after Christmas, since it'll be the slowest day of the year. Would you like to join me and come back on that day, and we'll go straight wrestling for 20 minutes?
Sign me up. I'm already ready. Yes.
Let's go. Chris Graham, I guess Free Press. My man, thanks for your help and have a great day.
Thanks, Mark.